Today on the Idiot's Guide, we are talking about even more adulting topics. Have you gotten tired of this yet? No. We still have like 400 to go because AI is pretty smart, I hear. Well, actually, I hear that it's not that smart. And even more so that I'm not even as smart as AI. So what does that make us? This is kind of depressing all of a sudden. Anyway, and, Chunk. No, I'm not calling you that, Joe. I'm sorry. But Chunk is a great name if you're fat shaming. But on the most watched Alaskan Fat Bear reality TV show, Chunk was recently unseated. I'm your host, Adam Richardson, a.k.a. The Profit Hacker, and I'm joined by the man in charge, Mr. Joe Haslam. Welcome to the Idiot's Guide. All right. Well, Joe, I think that, over the last couple episodes that we've had, we've covered some pretty serious topics. Not really, but really. I mean, they're good topics. I mean, so much so that the last episode, we slogged through 3 of them for a whole nearly an hour. I was just like, oh, this is excruciating. So to our listener out there, which, I mean, we just saw this morning, actually listened.
Yeah.
So, we're going to try to make it through a few more. I'm not even going to set a goal because I don't want to. I don't feel like that's appropriate. I don't want to get your hopes up or mine. And so we're going to work through these and hopefully we make some good progress. Maybe it'll surprise me and we'll exceed the goal that I mentally have right now.
Oh, see, you've set a number for yourself. That is as much as we're going to get through. Whether you say it out loud or not, I guarantee you that is as many as we're going to get through. No more.
If we make it, I'll smile.
Less.
I'll smile. Okay. It's fine. I'm good. But if we don't, I'll be mad. So can't do anything about it.
Well, don't tell me the number. That'll destroy us for sure.
Okay. So without further ado, I think that we can jump right into this, unless you want to add to what we were talking about last week, just so that it can elongate the topics that we spoke of last week.
No, I think we have thoroughly reviewed the AI overlords' first 8 topics. Now we can go on to the next ones.
You're right. It is 8.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can remember sometimes.
I have to take my shoes off to count that high.
There you go.
So, all right, guys. Well, what would be 9? But each episode, I'm kind of saying 1, 2, skip a few, 99. Anyway, number 9 is basic car maintenance. Learn how to change a tire, check the oil, and top off fluids.
This is so important. So important. So years ago, I decided, okay, we're going to go really cheap and we're just going to get a really cheap car for my commuter car. I don't go very far, it's just to work and back. So we were looking for Toyota Tercels.
Okay.
So really cheap, really inexpensive, good mileage car. Well, we got it from my wife's sister and her then husband. And so we thought, okay, this is a great deal. So we bought it for, I think, like $1,000. It was an older one. And here I was assuming that they had properly maintained this car. Well, about maybe a month after buying it, I'm heading up a hill here in the valley. And about halfway up the hill, the car just dies. And it's not going anywhere. It's not doing anything. It just dies. Well, come to find out, the engine seized because they had never done an oil change on that vehicle. And I only had it for a month. I didn't think I needed to. I figured this is family. This is a family of mechanics.
Yeah.
They would know to do that. No, they did not maintain it. So I got a month out of this $1,000 Tercel.
I had I think it was roughly the same. It was about maybe about $2,500 for a Ford Taurus. That it was nice. I really liked it. It's still like probably one of the most comfortable seats I've ever driven in.
Yeah.
And so, like, I don't even think that that they make Ford Tauruses anymore.
I don't know.
This was about 2010 when I had it, but it was newer, but it wasn't that new. It was like maybe like a 2004 Ford Taurus, so it's decent.
Yeah.
Transmission gone in like 2 months.
Oh.
Gone. I like dead in the intersection. I was like, what happened? Like, just dropped all the gears and nothing. I was stuck. It would start, but it would not go anywhere. It's like you'd run through shift and nothing. It wouldn't catch a single gear. I was like, how does that even happen? So I ended up having to just get rid of it because I was like, there's one at that point in my life. My wife was living in another state. I was living here, and yeah, it was just a giant nightmare. Wow. But I was curious because of what you guys had was the Toyota Tercel. That is the male of a hawk, especially a peregrine or a ghost hawk. I don't know how you say that. Goshawk. Anyway, I was just curious about that. That was more of a rabbit trail in my brain solidified onto my computer.
Well, there you go. But yeah, that's why it's so important, because if you are not maintaining your vehicles, you will end up being stranded.
Guaranteed.
And there are not always situations where you're going to have the ability to have someone else maintain it. So you think about oil changes. That's probably the most complex thing to do yourself, is an oil change. But I mean, it's not too difficult. You just got to make sure you lift it up. You've got all the blocks and everything under it, and you can do the oil change. You want to check your fluids, do all that stuff while you're doing the oil change. Mm-hmm. A lot of the other things, think about changing a tire. So I have had 2 situations where I've had tires blow while traveling somewhere. Once was on a major freeway. Another one was on an interstate highway. And so it was the middle of nowhere. I think it was in Oregon when the tire blew. I can't remember exactly where I was. I was going from Utah to Washington. I just know that. And somewhere along that route in a little tiny town, tire blew. And you've got to know how to change that tire. You've got to have the equipment to change that tire.
Yeah.
Now, at that time I didn't, because I was 22. And I should have had everything.
I'll just flag some people down. They can help pick up the car and wheel it this way.
Yeah, exactly. And so I had to pay for the tow truck. I had to pay for, a lot of extra stuff because I couldn't do it myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is ironic because this was a few years after my dad and I had rebuilt a Ford F-250 for me to drive. So I knew how to do the entire drivetrain. I knew how to replace an engine. I knew how to connect the engine to the transmission. We replaced it with a 350 big block. Well, we did all this stuff. You know the one thing he never taught me how to do? Change a tire. So I could repair the entire truck, but I couldn't change a tire.
I mean, if all else, if you don't have any knowledge about doing it, every single vehicle manual will show you how to do that. And also, you have a smartphone in your pocket. Access the internet, type in change a tire, and you will have a tutorial video from start to finish. And it'll even tell you where your tire is located, because some people don't know. Some people, hey guys, the easiest thing is if it's a car, it's in the trunk.
Yeah.
Okay? There's nowhere else it's going to go. And if it is a minivan, sometimes the minivans, they have a central compartment, but most often they're right underneath the very back of the vehicle. Mm-hmm. SUVs are very similar to that. Trucks are too. Now, Here's a note for trucks and SUVs. If for some reason you have a bigger tire, let's say you get all-terrains, and these are not very big tires, just normally a little bit bigger than your average tire. It's always best to have a full-size spare because you have a full-size rim that comes with that. It is not a spare tire like the cars get, the little donut, okay? The reason for that is because of the vehicle weight. So if you have something that is not the same size as your other tires, you are going to screw up everything else of your vehicle, suspension wise to steering wise. So you really want to make sure if you're changing tires, your spare has the same change as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, you always want to make sure. So, all of my girls, except for one, know how to change tires. The one we're still trying to get her to even get a license. But they all know how to change tires. They know what maintenance to do. They're all great. Now, they'll still call me if they're close by to do it for them because that's just who they are.
Because now you know.
Yeah. And so but that's an important thing that you need to know, when you turn your car on, the sounds that it makes, the things that happen, it's important to know, is it battery? Is it alternator? Is the sound or the smell of the leak? Is it oil? Is it transmission? All of these things are indicators of what's wrong with your vehicle to know, okay, this is how to diagnose it. Now, computers nowadays or cars nowadays, you can take it to the AutoZone and they'll do the free checkup for you with the little device. You can even buy the device on your own. But all these things help you to know what's wrong with your vehicle. And to your point of looking it up online, my daughter's truck, we just got her a truck. It's a used truck. It had a check engine light about 2 weeks after bringing it home. So we go to AutoZone, get it checked out. We couldn't tell if there was anything wrong with it. It idled hard when she would turn left. And so we take it in, get the quick check, and it was a camshaft sensor right side, because they're in her truck there too. And so I've never had to replace a camshaft sensor. Position sensor, that's what it's. Camshaft position sensor. And so I've never had to do that. Again, I know trucks pretty well. I rebuilt one at 17, but I'd never had to replace that specific part. So I just went online, looked it up. How do you replace it on this truck? YouTube video. It was great. Showed me everything. Went in, got it replaced in about 5-10 minutes.
Wow.
And so it's just, I think a lot of things is just having confidence to be able to go in and do it.
I was a mechanic. So I, prior to serving in the military and going overseas, that was my job. That's all I did. I took 2 years straight of auto mechanics in high school. And I would have taken 3 except for they don't allow it. So, and I graduated early. So it was the 2 years, my sophomore and junior year. My senior year, I was a class aide in the class. I was never there. I was always over at my friend playing 007. So, he had to tell me, he's like, you got to at least show up just like once a week. And I was like, okay, all right, once a week, I'll be here. But I mean, like, we did crazy things. We welded engines to grocery carts and drove them around the parking lot, like little go-karts out of like the craziest things, getting chased by the on-campus police officer because we have made something illegal and they're trying to catch us.
Yeah.
But that was fun. We would melt snow with gasoline. So pour it on, light it up.
Nice. And I do not look like a mechanic. I mean, you think you see in your mind when you say the word mechanic, you see a typical image of a mechanic. I am the guy who walks around with really soft hands because I make sure they are always lotioned. I am probably the most frou-frou guy in this office. And when I do the repairs on vehicles that need to be done, I'm wearing my button-up shirt and,
I don't know if it's appropriate for me to be like, no, you're not, Joe. Is that kissing up?
But I am. I
right.
In growing up, my dad's a mechanic, my brother's a mechanic, my father-in-law's a mechanic, my brother-in-law's a mechanic. Everyone in the family's a mechanic. But I can still go out there and get what needs to be done, whether I'm wearing my button-up shirt and my black shoes, my black work shoes, or if I look like a mechanic.
Yeah.
Or if I am a mechanic. That's the important thing here is just because you're a frou-frou guy doesn't mean you can't do this work. Just because you're a girl doesn't mean you can't do this work. There are a lot of stereotypes to these kinds of things.
Yeah. And I think that, some of the basic like upkeep stuff is really essential. If you're going to own a vehicle, it's super helpful. I don't like changing oil. I know how to.
Yeah.
That's the thing. So I go and get the oil change packages from places.
Right.
And I walk in and they check all my fluids. So I'm like, I don't have to worry about it. I just look at the sticker and compare the mileage and say, I'm ready to go back. That's it. So I follow instructions very clearly. But if I had to, if I didn't have that oil change package, then I would probably change my own oil. Yeah. I know how to. But I think you're right. In the sense of like the most complicated, a non-mechanic minded individual, just a car driver person.
Yeah.
Probably, I mean, getting to the oil plug is one thing. Knowing what an oil plug is the next. But also, it's not stripping it, making sure you put it in before you put oil back in it. Because if you don't, then oil goes right through your engine. And you're going to blow up your engine.
Yeah.
And you're going to have a massive EPA issue on your hands.
And if you do any work on your vehicle, do not use a regular wrench. Get a torque wrench. I am just going to say that right here, right now. They are expensive.
They are.
But get a torque wrench.
See, I don't have a torque wrench, and I've been wrenching for a lot of years. However, I know... like I've used and trained and worked in other shops with a torque wrench. So I know the pressure.
Right.
So other than that, like a normal individual, torque wrenches are really handy. And guys, you don't even have to get one technically. You can go to your auto shop down the street.
Oh yeah.
These national chains that are out there all rent tools. A torque wrench is one of those tools. Yeah. And literally it's free. You go in, you pay for the cost of it, but then when you bring it back, you get all that money back.
Right.
So it's a good deal, especially if you don't want to buy a brand new tool that you're going to use once in your lifetime. Go rent it and then take that tool back. And I think, that goes to show for like, some basic things. Changing filters. Air filters are easy. They're little clips. Even interior cab filters are not that complicated. You might want to like look, and I might be speaking some foreign language right now. They're like, there's an interior cab filter. I was like, guys, if you got some funk going on in your car, that's what the funk is going on, okay?
Or it's the 3-week-old leftover McDonald's sitting in your backseat.
That is absolutely true. That shake just in the cup holder still.
But I mean, when it comes to the maintenance and all that stuff, if you want to go inexpensive route, which is doing it all yourself, you can. You don't have to go to a repair shop to get these things done. But if you don't have the time, if you don't have the tools, take it in. Get it maintained, because you don't want to be a month down the road and lose out on $1,000 for your Toyota Tercel because you didn't check the oil.
Yeah. Yep. I had friends that didn't replace oil in the car the entire time they owned it, and it just seized the motor, and they're like, I didn't even know. I'm like, do you think it was like a sealed thing going on? Like, it doesn't make sense to me because I have the mechanical background. And so I'm almost offended when somebody is that oblivious that you're like, it's going to cost you so much money when it would cost you a fraction of that just to have some knowledge.
Yeah.
All right. So the next one, this one's, I'm going to push back on this one, but it's networking. Number 10 is networking. It is, build a professional network and work on your communication skills. The reason why I want to press back on that is I think that this is too general in the sense of saying we're talking about adulting. I don't think networking is necessarily a singular or like only professional side. I think networking is used in that sphere, like I have a network. But honestly, if I I'm going to go back to the car maintenance. If my car breaks down, it's typically not my professional network that I'm reaching into to find a mechanic that I need. It's usually somebody I know in my friends network or my family network, something around my community. And I think that I was reading one time. This kind of ties into this. I was reading one time from a book about like best advice from realtors, kind of a thing. And one of the individuals, really high profile real estate agent, has done millions and millions of dollars in sales. And they use the word become an ambassador to your community. Imagine how powerful of a network you would have if you were an ambassador to your community. And I don't mean like you're the mayor or you might flex and see if that happens, but more importantly, how are you bringing value to your community to where, the word ambassador becomes you because they can depend on you? Well, that's your networking. And that isn't a professional thing. That is a character thing. That's an individual thing.
Yeah.
So that's where I would push on this, is just kind of individual networking instead of it just being networking.
Yeah, and networking gets a bad rap. And professional networking, I think, is kind of bogus. It works for some groups, but realistically, networking is just talking to people. They turn it into this whole big professional networking, air quotes, thing. But networking is just reaching out to people. When you find someone that does a good job for you, so let's say you need someone to come and repair your garage door because it suddenly stopped working, which happened to me this last week. And you find a really good company that does it, that's great. Now I have a garage door repair company and install company in my back pocket that I can tell people about. And I trust their work. I trust their technicians. I trust what they do. Well, that's networking. And just remembering these things. And the opposite of that is also true. If you come across a company that is very bad at what they do, going back to oil changes, Jiffy Lube, you tell people don't ever go there.
Yep.
And it's just one of those things of that's what networking is all about. Just keeping these things in your back pocket to know who do you talk to? Who do you go to? Just recently, so I've got a couple of clients that are veterinarians, and one of my daughters wants to go to veterinary school. And so I don't know what the best veterinary schools are. I don't know what to tell her. I don't know where to go. So I called these guys. I said, okay, my daughter wants to go to veterinary school. Tell me what I need to know. And these guys pulled out the stops. And they said, these are the 5 best schools. These are the 3 that you want to apply for, because these other 2, while they're best schools, aren't necessarily best for these other things. And these 2 schools we have personal connections with, so we'll talk to people there and we'll tell you who to talk to. And it's just made the entire college process so much easier. Just because I know guys that are vets. Yep. Veterinarians.
Yeah, I honestly want to say that the professional side is just kind of like, it's most networking meetings that I've ever gone to on the professional side are real estate agents and insurance agents, and that's it. So you're there to sign each other up for this, and then next month you're going to see each other again. It just kind of gets to this point where you're like, why are we here? You know? And some of them have premiums that you pay for that kind of stuff, and don't get me wrong. I've been part of chambers. I've been part of, business networks that are really good and valuable, but at the same time, it's not all it's cracked up to be. More importantly, when we talk about networking, it's less about a professional network and just about your individual network.
Yeah.
Because that's going to benefit you across both professionally and in your personal life. And so,
yeah, when you talk to your neighbor over the fence and you're talking about, hey, who'd you get to come and do your landscaping or whatever it is? Oh, this is who I worked with. Yeah, they were okay. They weren't great, but yeah, they were good. And so you come to a consensus and you find the best people out there. When you're looking for jobs, when you know a lot of people, it gives you an opportunity to have an in because they're references for you.
Yeah.
to be able to say, yeah, I know this guy, he's good at what he does. And that means a lot. That's what networking is, not this quote unquote professional networking and all that crap stuff, because it's all crap stuff. You know, I hate when people go into this quote unquote professional networking. Networking is just about talking to people and getting to know them,
Yeah.
because that makes the difference.
I think that we can take away the professional side of this and just say, guys, it helps with communication skills. It even helps develop your own individual communication skills. So, networking is important on all fronts of your life, and support and that kind of stuff. So lean into it and learn to just make connections with people. Don't call it networking. Networking is kind of a dumb word for, hey guys, I'm bringing you cookies. I'm just networking. That's all,
Yeah.
All right, number 11, renting.
This one's a fun one for me.
Understand your lease agreement and pay your rent on time.
Yep.
We are entering an era right now where homeowners aren't moving. They're not going anywhere because everything is expensive. And then renters are renting and they're stuck renting. But then you have this drama where you're kind of stuck where you're at. And, even there's a joke around our area that you're like, they'll show a picture of an outhouse for rent for like $3,200 a month kind of a thing. And you're like, yeah, okay, I'll believe that if it's downtown New York, okay, but not here. But it's really close. It's for a 1-bedroom apartment in most parts of our town here, it's more than my mortgage is right now for a whole house.
Yeah.
It's kind of scary, but that doesn't excuse the fact that when you enter into an agreement there's been, I can say every single time I've ever rented, I read my lease agreement. I was very aware.
Oh yeah.
Because when I was younger and didn't read it, I got just robbed.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, you need to know, what's the term? What are the increases in rent? So I rent right now. We're looking at buying, and I'll go over the math of why it's not always better to buy. But we're renting right now, and he has built into the lease a 5% increase in rent every year. And so if we continue to rent this, it's going to go up 5% every year. That's a lot of money when you're talking about a big house. And so it's just one of those things of, you've got to make sure you're aware of everything in the lease. Who covers the utilities? What are the rules for pets?
yeah,
What are the rules for parking? What are the rules for maintenance? There's a lot of those things that go in there that are important to know, as well as local laws. So one of the big ones, I don't know if this is a national thing. I know there are some national protection laws. They're few and far between. And our state we actually have a legislator in our state who prides himself on the one-sided laws that benefit landlords that he has passed here in the state. And I despise him for it. His last name is Cullimore. I will call him out. I will call him out my entire life. But no, he prides himself on how one-sided he has made the laws in our state to benefit landlords. And guess what his son does for a living? He's a lawyer representing landlords. Oh yeah, it's disgusting and sick. But anyway, understanding what the laws are to what your protections are. So if you move out, is the landlord supposed to replace the carpet? So here in Utah, if you have lived there for more than 2 years, the landlord cannot take carpet replacement out of your security deposit. Even if you've completely hashed all the carpet.
You did an oil change on your motorcycle.
Yeah, exactly. In your living room. And it's all over the carpet. If you've lived there for 2 years or longer, the landlord can't charge you for that.
Okay.
they have to replace the carpet on their own dime. And so it's things like this that it's just important to know what the laws are in your state. Another really important one is if you've got a landlord who's not coming out and maintaining your property, so making sure that you have running water or making sure that the appliances are working, that are necessary for living.
Yeah.
If they do not respond to your requests in a given amount of time, then you are fully allowed to go and do that maintenance yourself, hire someone to come in and repair it for you, and you take that out of the rent. And they can't do anything about it because they didn't respond to get that work done.
I do know over the years that I've learned that you obviously you're going to sign a lease agreement, whether that's a one-page document and a handshake because you're renting from somebody's, you're living in their basement, eating out of their fridge.
Yeah. Avoid those ones.
Yeah. If you're single, and that's you're
Single and young, that's okay.
yeah, you're durable, you're bouncy, so But when you have all of these other things like family and kids, and you try to enter into an agreement like that, it's really difficult. The dynamics become very, very challenging, very fast.
Yeah.
But if there's a lease agreement, there's one thing that supersedes the lease agreement, which is Utah state renters' rights. Renters' rights are helpful, especially if someone in a lease agreement sneaks in something stupid that you're like, at the end of it, they're going, well, it was in the lease agreement. I'm like, oh, well, Utah state law says you're not even allowed to put that in there.
Yep.
And so it's really, really good to familiarize yourself. If you feel like renting is going to be a normal thing for you for a season, for a number of years, knowing these laws is going to save you in conversation with people who are out to just make an extra buck in the shadiest sorts of ways. So
yeah. And remember that you are signing a contract. And so the law supersedes anything that's written in the contract.
Yes.
So if there is a law that says that something is illegal, you cannot make a contract to then do that.
Yeah.
It becomes void or voidable depending on what those situations are. And so similar to this, not quite the same, but one of my daughters, she's foster program, so she's not technically a daughter. But she was living with her mom, and her mom is a big fitness buff. And so made her sign up for a gym membership the day before her 18th birthday. Now, she never went to that gym. I think it was like a week before her 18th birthday. She went once before her 18th birthday. And she had been paying for that for 2 years. When she finally came to me and said, I've been trying to cancel this and I don't know how. I've called them multiple times to tell them to cancel. And they won't let me cancel. They tell me I have to do this and that. And so I said, when did you sign up for it? And she told me the date, and it was before she was 18. And I said, did you go after you were aged 18? She said, no, I only went once after I signed up for the membership, and it was the day before her 18th birthday. I said, perfect. And so I called up the company, and I mean, to their credit, once I said these things, they did cancel the contract right away. I mean, I'm not a big fan of gyms because of how they treat their members. But at least on this point, so I won't give you their name because they didn't give me any crap after this. But I called them up and I said, okay, I've got my daughter here, and she signed up for this. She's been trying to cancel this for years now, and you guys keep giving her the runaround. Now, she was 17 years old when she signed up for this contract, and she has not affirmed this since she's turned 18. Yeah. And I said, she is disaffirming this contract, and she's been trying to disaffirm the contract since she's been 18, and you guys haven't let her. And so they said, hold on a minute. We waited about 5 minutes. They came back and said, nope, you're good. The contract is canceled. Have a good day. That's why it's important to know what these laws are, because as a minor, you can't sign a contract. Now you can, But so long as you don't affirm or act on that contract after you turn 18 and try to disaffirm the contract, you can get out of that contract because you were a minor when you entered into it. And so as an adult, you have to affirm that contract and say, yes, I am okay to continue this contract. And if you don't, then you can void the contract.
I think one of the things to keep an eye out that kind of ties in with the contracts and paying attention to it and renting is storage facilities. Storage facilities are sometimes you can have a really fantastic slumlord, and they're where they're super duper nice and the facility is decent, and then you like I don't know. I've had storage units where they wouldn't take electronic payments, and so they had a little box that you had to drop an envelope in, and then during snowstorms or something like that, like getting there, you had to get there because even on that, they lived on the premises of the storage facility, so they'd walk out to the box, and if your rent check wasn't in there on like the exact moment it's due, they're unlocking your storage facility and divvying that stuff out. So it is sketch stuff, but guys, like again, that's a renting facility. You need to really pay attention to those things. And also the fact that, storage facilities are odd because they don't fall under renters' rights. However,
Right.
there are tons of businesses and people who actually live in storage facilities. So,
But yeah, we do not recommend that. But talking about the financial benefit of owning versus renting. So I've been talking about this with people recently because we're working on buying the home that we're renting. And when I explained to them that it's really not beneficial. So part of the reason it's not beneficial right now is because of the high interest rates. So when I compare how much I'm paying in rent right now on our home versus how much my mortgage would be outside of anything beyond just principal and interest. So we're not talking about, increases in homeowners insurance versus renters insurance, changes in other things that come along with that. It's about $1,000 difference. I would be paying about $1,000 more on mortgage
really,
than what I'm paying in rent. And so when I look at the entire course of the contract, so when I do this, the example is a $500,000 home at a 7% interest rate. Over the course of that loan, you will pay almost $1.2 million for that home.
Yeah.
So that's for 30 years. And so you are paying, what is that, about $700,000 more than the house is worth.
right.
Now, if you just rent that same 30-year time frame, given the rent that I'm paying right now, is $800,000 total. So in total cash, I am saving $400,000 over the next 30 years if I just rent. Now, some people will say, well, at the end of it, you have the house. You have the $500,000 house. Well, that's great.
Right.
I have a $100,000 house at that point because I can pay $800,000 or I can pay $400,000 more than what I'm paying right now to rent it. Well, that all comes out of that value of that house that I just got. And so all I'm benefiting is $100,000 more of an asset.
I'm curious if it's going to do this, but last time out of this kind of economy that we had, I would say late 80s, early 90s, interest rates were horrific, and it kind of dawned the era of like people like Carlton Sheets that would come in and start preaching this creative financing sphere. And so you start hearing more about that, where you have individuals who assume mortgages, who or they don't assume a mortgage, they'll do a seller finance or a lease option to buy. And some of those, you're not dictated by the terms that a normal lender is going to cost you,
Right.
which can be beneficial. I agree with you in the sense that, when you look at the big picture in that kind of black and white sort of scenario, amortization wise, the cost to buy a house right now isn't what the cost or the cost of the house is. So it's a $450,000 house or $500,000 house. The cost is not 500,000 over the 30 years.
Yeah.
It is more like 1.2 million. But that is even at my mortgage, I have a low interest rate. I have a decent mortgage amount, and I've paid it down a little bit. I took out a home equity loan to do some stuff. I still have lots of room in the value of my home, and so at the end of the day, if I sold, I'm in a decent position.
Right.
But I'm in a terrible position to buy a house because I'll have a down payment for a really expensive home and a very high interest or very high rate,
Yeah.
which makes my payment that I'm paying now at least double what I'm paying.
Yeah.
And, although that's kind of one of those things you have to mentally just kind of start preparing for. That's where I see that our society will start getting more creative about this again. And I want to know, I'm watching that because in the real estate market, especially in the investor side of things, how does that shape the next generation of investors? Because you have a different kind of financial industry now, regulatory, in regards to home ownership, and how are they going to get their fingers in that? And that's just something I'm paying attention to. But guys, it's definitely something that real estate's always a great direction. But I would always encourage. Don't look at it so black and white, because at the end of the day, that will scare everyone out the door, no matter what.
Well, and honestly, I am more attuned to renting. I think
Yeah.
renting is a great option. And so if our listener is deciding between a mortgage or rent, honestly, rent a lot of times is better when we're in a high priced economy like
Right
we're
now,
right now.
yeah, our current market is rental. It is something for the renter. Even homeowners are not. They're staying homeowners just because
Exactly.
of the fear
Yeah.
of what would happen if I lost my house. Like I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm great.
Yeah, and that's exactly why, because they are doing the math. And so again, it comes back to, we talk about this almost every single podcast. Do the research, do the math, look into the details and understand what's going on.
Yeah.
Because that's what's going to help you make the best decisions. And we have so much information nowadays to be able to do Google searches, YouTube searches. Now there's a lot of crap that's out there. But the more research you do of actual information, you're going to be in that much better of a position to adult.
Yeah.
To be able to live an adult life, to bring people into this life, if that's your path, to just be able to succeed as an adult.
So the next two, I'm actually going to kind of fly through these,
Okay.
because I'm looking at them and there's some redundancy about it.
You're just trying to get your number. That's all you're doing.
Don't judge me. Number 12, Joe.
Exactly.
Self-care. Prioritize self-care to manage stress and maintain your well-being. So the only reason why I say that is the one we stopped on last week and spent 45 hours on was healthcare. And so I don't want to really get stuck on this one. Guys, the message is prioritize yourself. Like, make sure that you give yourself enough space to not be overburdened by everything going on in your life. And at the same time, like, you can't just be like, well, I'm taking everything off because I just don't like oxygen right now. So, I think it's super stressful. Believe me, I've got a lot of stress going on, and it's still, if I didn't take a moment to be able to assess and calm myself every day, I am a walking volcano that's just a hair away from an eruption. And that's saying it lightly.
I will attest to that. But no, take vacations, take time off. There are people who work 7 days a week, working 80, 120 hours a week, and it's not healthy. Take time for yourself. Take a vacation.
Yeah.
Take time off. That's really important. Here in the United States, we have a really bad problem with people overworking.
Yep.
Now, I think it's great that there's that much of a work ethic here in the United States. But it's damaging to health.
I think what's interesting is there's a strike going on. I don't know if it's still going. I'm pretty sure it is, but with the auto workers,
Yeah, it's still going on.
and it's one of those strikes where it's more about the union. It's more about the politics behind it. But what they're asking for is something that I feel like our society it's just foreign to, where they want full-time hour pay, but a 32-hour work week. And and what's interesting is you go to other countries and the way that they operate their work weeks are very similar to this kind of stuff. Our society, it's so normal for you to work and then die. That's
Yeah.
all you have a chance to do. And that could be, your one day today that you wake up in the morning and then you work and you go to bed. And that's your life. That sounds miserable. That sounds absolutely terrible. But our society goes, shame on you if you think otherwise. And I'm
Right.
like, I talk about how blessed I feel like to have the position I have here because I have a tremendous amount of flexibility with what I have to do. I have other responsibilities that I take care of, and this job affords me to take care of those things. But it's not the normal. Like I can't ever really explain it to people because they're like, what do you mean? You can make that time. I was like, I know it's like Tuesday at 9:30 in the morning and everyone else is like 5 hours into their main shift for the day and 17 to go.
Yeah, for me, when it comes down to the work life balance, I prefer work life integration. But if I need to take time off to go take care of a kid who's in emotional distress, I'll do it. I've gone to the school in the middle of the day to yell at a vice principal for an hour and a half because of the way that they treated one of my kids.
My favorite thing to do.
Oh yeah,
So fun.
it's awesome. But by balance to that is some days I get here between 7, 8, 9 o'clock, depending on the day. Fridays is a little bit later because school starts later. However they figure that works. But sometimes I'm here till 6:30. Sometimes I leave here at 4:30. I come in on Saturdays. I've got teenagers. They're not awake before noon on Saturday. So I come into the office, I go get groceries first thing in the morning on Saturday, come into the office for 2, 3, 4 hours, depending on what I've got going on. It's great. No one's calling me.
Yeah.
I made up 4 hours that, I took off earlier in the week to get work done. And it means that the next week, because I got work done ahead of time, I have more flexibility the next week to be able to take time off if needed.
Yeah.
And it's a huge benefit because my life is so much more relaxed. Now, it doesn't get rid of all the stress, but we've got to realize that we've got to think about ourselves first. That's what the SAG-AFTRA strike is about. It's about what the writers union strike was about. It's what the auto workers strike is about. These employers are taking major advantage of their workers and just working them to the bone.
Well, and the society, like I said, has this false expectation that this is how we've always done it.
Yeah.
Because when you look at things like manufacturing, you look at our emergency response, teams, that kind of stuff. The shift work that they're doing is extensive. Our medical staff, even to the sense of call centers and construction crews. Like you look in every direction of what our life does, and the demand is more for less. And they're finally saying, no, I'll do less for more.
Yeah.
So let's switch this around and see how it feels.
Yeah, and that's what needs to happen. Now, I'm not a big fan of unions. I am a capitalist. But this is when those collective bargaining comes in value. A lot of times unions are not necessarily there to bring in value for people. They're looking at themselves first. But these are the times when unions really come important, when people are being taken advantage of.
Yep.
And so, again, not always a big fan of unions, but I think these are the situations that are really important to talk about. And so, listener, when you are overworked, you need to go to your boss and say, this is it. I'm overworked.
Something I think that this kind of help me in recent years is a book called Boundaries. It's Christian based, so if you're not into that stuff or scripture references through the book, then I don't know if our listener is or not, but it definitely, I think in it, it's written by two doctors that talk about this kind of self-care sort of stuff. And the reality is it's not necessarily about what the Bible says or anything like that. It's more about the idea of giving you the power to say no and not feel bad about it. And that's that boundary. That's that saying of going, look, self-care. If I was talking to a friend the other day and just kind of their struggle with like, man, I don't want to be in this meeting, whatever it is. And I turned around and I said, look, if it's too difficult for you to challenge what they're doing in that meeting, the next time they call, you're busy. No, it's okay. I'm sorry. No, like you can be apologetic about it. It doesn't matter. At this point, you just said no. Nope. Nope. I don't have time. No,
Yeah.
no, I can't. And the more the more you assert that without it being some kind of conflict, you just kind of place it and go like, man, it feels kind of liberating because now I have some free time.
Yeah.
Goodness, this feels great. And then all of a sudden you're going to be like, I'm going to say no to everything now, like this is me now. This is me time.
Yeah.
So that's
And-
just my perspective about self-care. Sometimes taking back that no is important.
Yeah. And if our listener is a business owner, a capitalist like me, be a responsible capitalist. That's the important thing.
Yeah.
Recognize that those people that you have working for you are people.
Yeah.
And you need to treat them like that. Treat them like you want to be treated. Don't just treat them like guinea pigs or workhorses. Treat them like people. That's what responsible capitalism is.
Years ago, I had to quit a job because I was allergic to it. Literally, I was having stress hives all over my arms. I was like, what is going on? I went to the doctor and they're like, those are stress hives. I was like, I didn't even know that existed. I was like, I can't even take an antihistamine for this. They're like, not really. Like, there's just what's going on, whatever it is. And is too much stress in that place. And I was like, yeah, I gotta go. I'm sorry. Like, this sucks. Like, I've never experienced this.
That should never exist.
But anyway, all right,
next
last one. This is the last one for today. We're going to knock this out because it ties with one we just talked about a bit ago. Number 13,
Sure it does.
relationships. Invest time in your relationships with friends and family. Guys, this was what we just talked about in networking, but we just honestly said the same thing, but the better way of saying networking.
That's right. Have friends. Talk to them. When I have a stressful day, I've got my best friend, and I can give him a call, and we can talk.
Yep.
I did miss his birthday, so if he ever listens to this, happy late birthday. I never did end up calling or texting and saying happy birthday.
Still can,
Yeah, I know, but not really.
You're like, yeah, but it was March. So I really missed his birthday.
It was a month and a half ago, I think. But no, I mean, when I'm stressed, when I've got things, when I'm dealing with DCFS and they're being dickheads, for lack of a better term.
Wow. I'll have to edit that.
Yeah. I can call him up and I can vent to him. And that's great. I can't really vent to my wife about that because we're both dealing with it. We're both venting. We both need to vent. And so I can call my friend and I vent to him.
Yeah.
And all he does is he listens. And if you're that friend that gets the call, all you have to do is listen. Let them talk. They're just venting.
Yeah.
And it's so important to be able to have that.
I think that, like we were talking about with networking, relationships, I always tell my kids, like you have to be a friend to make friends, or be friendly to have friends. And it just, guys, friends are really, really valuable in a lot of different ways. Some of those friends are friends that are just connections that know you occasionally. And some of those people are, people you confide in about some of the most difficult things you're going through. And it's okay to have a giant pile of people at different levels of that. I would say that please don't have a giant pile of people that you confide in. That's usually a small group of probably
Yeah.
no more than 5. But um, but having a big pile of friends and having those 5 that will hop in a vehicle and go burn something down with you if you need it is really valuable, guys. You know?
And every relationship that you have is going to be slightly different, but foster those relationships, build them, grow them. That's what's going to help you get through the worst parts of life, is just having people that you can talk to. Sometimes you can't talk to your spouse about something. You may want to vent about your spouse. And so you have to call a friend. There are going to be times where you want to vent about your friend. That's what your spouse is for.
Yeah.
You want to vent about work. You want to vent about whatever it is. I will say, never vent to your kids. Some parents try to do that. Don't vent to your kids about your spouse. That's just not healthy. But find people to vent to. Make sure you have those relationships in your life.
You know, and if it's something that you by yourself just can't bear,
Yeah.
you know, like Anchorage, Alaska weather, you know, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff you want a buddy for. Or at least if you are in that kind of weather, you need to pack on the pounds in order to bear that weather. Like the bear named Grazer.
Okay, here we go. Nice transition there.
Also known as Bear 128 to the fans that are out there. This bear, Grazer, is the one that unseated Chunk. Chunk was the champion, reigning champion for a number of years, but there's this reality TV show that is in Anchorage, Alaska. All the Alaskans, it's their greatest joy. I don't think they sound like they're from Minnesota, but I imagine that's their conversation. I don't know. Something about, I'd have to listen to somebody from Alaska talk. I only see like the greatest fisherman or whatever it is, and then you're like, no, I don't want to talk like that. But these guys, this show is a big deal. And for a week, it's called Fat Bear Week. So it's neat. No, we're not talking about people. Guys, don't go to your neighbor and take a picture and submit it for Fat Bear Week. It's really rude. And that is fat shaming, okay?
It is. I don't want to see my picture anywhere over there, Adam. I choked him up.
It's not about the weight of the bear. It's how the bear carries themselves in the under the spotlight of popularity. So what happens is the locals get a chance to vote on their favorite bear, of the most fat or fattest bear, most fatter, the fatterest, whatever. The Fat Bear Week.
Our inner idiots are showing right now.
Chunk got a total of 23,134 votes.
Are there that many people in Alaska?
Apparently the whole state. Yeah. It's big, so you could fit that many, but I didn't know that either. But even more so, Grazer, who won by a landslide, 108,321.
All right, it's got to be more than just Alaska residents that are voting for this thing.
Now we're talking like British Columbia.
That's right, exactly.
Yeah, they probably opened the networks up into Canada, kind of thing. We're like, we need your help, guys. We don't have enough numbers to break this tie. So it was actually drew more than 1.3 million votes from dedicated fans watching this. It's on explore.org, so it's not even on a television. That's definitely not just Alaskans at that point. But it's based out of Alaska, which is where these bears and these pictures are taken from. But it's a mighty big bear. There's a picture on the website. I got this from the Associated Press. I also know it's on NPR. They have an article, same stuff. But I don't really have much more to say other than the fact that, man, that bear is fat. Jeez Louise. Let yourself. There is a estimated 2,200 brown bears in what the area is called Katmai, which is an area outside of Brooks River, Alaska. But Grazer is one of the big bears. That's a picture of Grazer in the river. Massive, massive bear. So anyway, that's all I got for you guys. If all you guys take away from this is just life is too short, please keep laughing. Please keep learning. And remember, idiots have way more fun.
Check your shoes.